Welcome to Seen and Heard podcast, where everyone should be seen and heard. And welcome back, Miss Kenniss, our
Yay.
host. Hello, Miss Kenniss. I'm trying to get this. I hit the wrong button here. Let me see. There we go. Hello, Miss Kenniss. How are you?
Happy
I'd like to.
2023.
Yes, happy 2023 to you and to those that celebrate on this sad, bittersweet day. Happy, well, it's not happy, but condolences go out to the Asian community for the tragedy in California. So on your New Year's, Lunar New Year's, we send out our condolences. And we will start with opening up our show with Miss Kamala Harris. This is the 50th, and well, this would have been the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, but she did put out a message for, um, here it is right here. She put out a message for Roe v. Wade today. Is this it here? Thought I had it queued. Oh, there we go, right there.
Today, we should be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the decision in Roe versus Wade. Instead, after the Supreme Court took a constitutional right from the people of America, we are looking at a situation where extremist so called leaders in states around our country are depriving women of the right to have access to reproductive health care. We are looking at a situation where these same extremist so called leaders are passing laws criminalizing healthcare providers, where pharmacists are afraid to give women medication that they require to exercise the right to make decisions about their own body. This is a moment for us all to stand for freedom and liberty for every person, for every woman, everywhere.
Hmm.
So on the other side of that, Miss Kennis, what are your thoughts?
Short and to the point.
Yep.
I guess I would have thought that 50 years deserved a bit more from Madam Vice President, but short and to the point. Um, I guess I'm a little sad because the history behind how we got to a place where there was a Roe v. Wade cost many people their lives with the coat hanger attempted abortions and the concoctions that they drank trying to abort a fetus, a baby, however you want to look at it. I'm a little bit surprised that she was real neutral in what she said, almost, and very short. Um, and it looks like we're going full circle back to where we started with all the states that are eliminating access to abortions and actually criminalizing the entire process. And as Madam Vice President said, uh, you run the risk of losing your license if you are a healthcare provider or a pharmacist. And if you're on the other side trying to get the abortion, you run the risk of being jailed for trying to get an abortion. And to me, it all comes down to someone else wants to control my body. Someone else wants to take charge of my womb. And there's so many full circles here. It's the full circle of the egregious history behind abortions years ago before abortions were legalized. but it's also the take going back centuries to the enslavement of my ancestors, when my ancestors had no control over their wombs. It was a cash cow. It produced capital. It helped them in their greedy quest for capitalism. Um, and just look at even then. Um, Old master, everybody on plantation pregnant. That's how I grow my bottom line. So no control did we have over our bodies then. Um, in as a part of that enslavement period, our ancestors were purchased and put in brothels, and their bodies sold, and the money yet again going to the bottom line for old master. So here we are yet again, coming face to face, full circle, with the inability to be able to control our bodies. And I want to talk about the enslavement of our ancestors one more time,
Mm-hmm.
because it also deals with power. You control my body, you have the power. And if you don't think that's true, just look at the period of enslavement. Not just that there were breeders who went from plantation to plantation impregnating the women who were not pregnant, barefoot and pregnant, but look at the fact that anytime old master figured somebody wasn't pregnant, or if he just had this insatiable desire for some black meat, he would just get up in the middle of the night, go on down to the slave quarters, climb in the bed, get between my female ancestor and my male ancestor, and have his way and get out and go back to his bed. Tell me that's not power, because you are there in this bed, and this man cannot defend his woman, his wife. That's rape. That is rape in any way you look at it. And there's nothing that she can do. She can't go get an abortion because he owns her. He owns her body. He owns everything about her. Um, and today, while they may not technically own us, they still have the power to decide whether or not we are able to get an abortion. And that goes right back to the need for power, but it also goes back to, our colonizers are rapidly, I don't know how come not all along, but rapidly, they are beginning to see that their numbers are dwindling. And if there are abortions, then the numbers continue to dwindle. This way, they have total and complete control over the population growth, over whether or not you can have an abortion. And if you have an abortion, well, that you're going to go to jail. That way, hey, we have control. We got you in jail. We put the person who tried to give you the abortion or did give you the abortion, that person is in jail. The pharmacist is in jail. That's so much power. And there's so many other social and societal wrongs and social issues that need to be addressed, other than wondering what's going on with my body. It is my body, and I should be able to do with my body whatever I want. And lastly, about this Roe v. Wade thing, I think lastly, um, you don't want me to have an abortion, but you don't want me to have food stamps. You don't want me to have access to quality housing. You're not going to give this child a guarantee that there will be access to a quality college education that I do not have to worry about paying for. The system says I can only get welfare for 5 years. So after 5 years, what am I supposed to do? And in a lot of places, the rapist has visitation rights, and they will use them to further intimidate the person they raped. All of this is just bizarre, And if not now, I don't know when we are going to just get together. It has nothing to do with whether I'm black, pink, purple, polka dot, or some other color. It means that we as women, we must all stand up and say, never again. We're not going to stand for this. So that's, I think, my take on Roe v. Wade for now.
And you said that well because I was actually going to interject the fast forwarding from our history of not having control, our ancestors not having control of our bodies, and that power dynamic. Now the because black women knew that history, because we can't escape it, we knew what was going to happen, and then the white women went ahead. They didn't believe us because nobody ever listens to black women. We were like, this is not going to go the way you think it's going to go. And then they thought, that the politicians were playing chicken, like, oh, it'll never happen, they'll never overturn it. And then what happened? They didn't listen to black women. They didn't listen to the native women because the native women pretty much got sterilized and went through the same issues. So they didn't want to listen to the black and brown people. And now everybody is messed up.
Yeah,
Everybody.
we all having to deal with the same thing. Now, the other piece of that is what has always been the history, and that is if I come from money, I can always get an abortion. Hop on a plane and go whatever country they do abortions, get the abortion and come on back. But for the average person, or for some hardworking middle class woman, or not even necessarily middle class, she does not have the money to hop on a plane, nor does she have the connections. So she cannot get on a plane and go somewhere and have an abortion. So it's power, it's money, it's this display of wealth. And also, I wasn't going to say this. Eh, this might be
Say
what gets me off of here. But
it. Say it in the PG
it,
version if you can.
oh, I got it in the PG version.
Okay,
But
okay.
it's also the fact that dirty old men who have had their way with all women all the time, and they sort of were, maybe not as free with Roe v. Wade because there's the potential for there to be a baby, unless, of course, they use protection.
Mm.
But now, dirty old men have their free will. They can go do whatever they want to do. You can't get an abortion. You can't get rid of it. So there's this traumatization behind the fact that not only can you not get an abortion, but some dirty old man who just happened to have been walking along and sees some little 15-year-old girl that he suddenly fancies, that person is traumatized for the rest of their life. Say they live to be 85. So for the next 70 years, they don't you don't ever forget what happened. And you have the constant reminder, not that I'm not saying you're going to hate this child, but you just have that constant reminder of what you lost. You're 15 years old, as an example, and now you have a child. uh you're a child yourself. And I really have to just keep going back to dirty old men who now have free reign to do whatever they want to do, because they know that they can intimidate you by saying, I want parental rights. And they can also intimidate you because if you try to get an abortion, well, you're going to go to jail. And everybody around you is going to go to jail. And some dirty old man has way too much power.
And not
I
only
think that
that, the rapist family, if they find out, they could sue you. Like, you first off, you're 10, 15 years old. The logic is not math. The math is not math because you're 15 years old. They're saying you're old enough to have a child, carry and bear a child, but you're not old enough to drive. You're not old enough to get a job. So you may be an orphan as well. So you don't have parents that are giving you an allowance. Not that even a allowance, if you did have parents giving you an allowance, it's going to be enough for maternity clothes, getting you back and forth to the doctor, getting your medicine, your prenatal vitamins, um, getting the baby's diapers, the formula. I mean, how much does that cost? I mean, the formula now these days is what, like $30 for baby formula? And then they
Ooh,
don't want to give you assistance. They don't want to give you housing assistance. They don't want to give you food assistance. They don't want to give you medical. It's like, yeah, just like you said, trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma.
that's exactly what it is. And we should all be ashamed of ourselves, one, for allowing that to happen. And two, we should, it's time that we start to campaign so that the SCOTUS is not there for life.
Hmm.
We need term limits on the SCOTUS also, because people like Clarence Thomas, who's been there for the last 50 years, maybe not 50, but close enough.
Hmm.
Um, he's jaded, and he also recognizes that. To be honest, I've heard that there are other black men who are more powerful. I don't see anyone in this country who's more powerful than Clarence Thomas,
Right.
because he has all that power and he can make decisions that impact you for life, and or what however life goes. And since I don't think Roe v. Wade was codified at the federal level, then it could be overturned. Fact check me on that, but I don't think it was codified into law. So
No,
at the
it wasn't codified. No, it wasn't, because we actually found that out when the leaked memo came out saying that's what was going to happen. They were going to overturn whoever leaked the memo. Leaked the memo. We found out it wasn't codified then.
and that leaked memo is, I mean, it's a joke. They spent all that money and all that time, and the final results that came out the other day, they couldn't put their finger on anybody who leaked it. They talked to people who said, yes, I had that conversation with my spouse, but my spouse wouldn't do anything like that. So all that money and all that, hoopla around this leaked memo, well, what difference did it make? It was the truth. And that
That
and
was
it,
all a distraction,
it was
because
just,
for them saying that they don't know who it is, I honestly believe they do know who it is, and then that's their cover story. Oh, we don't know. you know,
well,
who
not only do
who
they know who it
we
is,
don't know.
I think they gave somebody the story to leak.
Mhm.
We know how things go.
Yep.
Um, and then, you got full protection and full cover. We're not going to let anyone come after you. Shoot, as far as that's concerned, it could have come out of Clarence Thomas's office between he and his wife
Jenny.
Jenny.
I believe that's where it came from. I mean, all we have are assumptions that because of course nobody knows for sure. So all we're running on is assumptions. But yeah,
Exactly.
his wife, she fomented the coup. She getting people up there to attack her capital, of course, facing no consequences. So it could be her, it could be Alito, it could even be Amy Comey.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been Kavanaugh with his crybaby self,
Right,
but
he might have got it drunk and leaked it at
of
one of their
course, of course.
parties.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. But nothing is ever leaked
Right,
without
exactly,
consequences in this country. So if it was leaked, then you absolutely cannot find anyone to say that person is the guilty party. Then it was staged.
right. The whole thing, like I said, it was a distraction because they were just like with these Biden papers, they were getting too close to their cash cow or to their town jester, which is orangutan in chief, and so he, of course, has blackmail on everybody. That's why he's. I assume that he's not in jail right now, but he had some called in a favor, and then all of a sudden now we have these Biden papers. So now, since that's in the news, they could always say, well, you can't charge him because look at what Biden did. So now that's in the media cycle. It's like another butter emails 2.0. So now they could use that, which they are using it, the GOP, to argue, well, you can't hold Trump accountable because Biden did the same thing. How convenient.
Well, now, here's another way to look at it. There should be strict SOPs, process, and procedures in place. If you are no longer in the White House and you have donated everything you intend to donate to the museum or
The
every president
library.
has their library and their cultural center and whatever the case may be. If all of that has been donated, and it should be donated before you leave the White House, in November that you are leaving the White House in January. You know that. You have enough time to make sure the papers that need to go to where storage place to be archived for your library or your cultural center or museum or whatever, they're gone. Everything else should be shredded. You got a full complement of staff, and there is no reason for anything to leave the White House to go to your personal residence. And as far as I am concerned, I think Trump should be severely reprimanded and punished. And if Biden had any kind of paperwork, I'm sorry, but
I
I
agree
think
too.
I
I
think he
agree.
should be censored also. So and it's not, well, you can't do it to this one because
Right,
I
right,
don't
right,
care
right.
about that. I
But I
don't
was
care
just
about
saying that it was just awfully
that.
convenient.
I agree. I
Right.
wholeheartedly agree. But we also need to, you guys are the ones running the country. And it never occurred to you that you need to have some strict process and procedures, some standard operating procedures in place so that when you leave the White House, you take your coat, your hat, your notebook,
Mhm.
blank notebook. And when you walk through that door, somebody should be standing there to look to see what you're taking out of there.
Right.
As a matter of fact, every time you go out the door, somebody should be standing there looking to see what you're taking out. Look at the companies that when you leave some of these companies, they literally make sure the only thing you're taking out is your coat, your hat, and maybe an umbrella.
Right. And the things you had on your desk, that's it. It's
And the
just like
things
the
you have.
Walmart shopper, the Walmart, person at the door, the Walmart host. They were checking
Mhm.
that receipt before you pull that buggy out of the store.
Well, that too, and that's low level. But some of
Right.
these high level places where they are dealing with money and securities and all that other stuff, you do not walk out that door unless they have searched you and they make sure that there isn't anything in your lunch bag but your sandwich, your chips, and a juice box. And if you ate the sandwich, the chips, and the juice box, there should be nothing in your lunch bag because you just discard that.
Right, right. Especially in a position where you're dealing with high security clearance and things like that. Yes. So
Yes.
yeah, no, I'm not saying that Biden shouldn't be held accountable if he did wrong or they handled everything wrong. Yes, by all means, we need to hold everybody accountable. It doesn't matter who it is.
And
But
and I'm not.
right.
Neither am I saying that Biden should be held accountable. What I'm saying is, way before we got to this point,
Hmm.
we should have been smart enough to have anticipated that something like this can happen and had process and procedures in place.
Right.
And
But
since we
Biden is still in that old mold where like it seems like nobody could talk to him because the Republicans are too far gone. They're full on fascist Nazis. Biden for some reason keeps calling them his friends across the aisle. That's where he's messing up because they're not operating in good faith whatsoever.
Well, if you want to talk about friends across the aisle, ooh, um, the beginning of the year, maybe like the second or third day of the year, Biden and Mitch McConnell did a photo op,
Hmm.
and Biden was like syrupy grape Kool-Aid, where he was talking about, oh, this is what bipartisan showmanship is like. And he was just laying it on like cream cheese on Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell was laid back. He, didn't say a whole lot. Now, what were they talking about? Biden signed off on a piece of legislation that gave Mitch McConnell in the great state of Kentucky, I'm going to say fact check me on this. I think it was about $4 million for the a bridge in Kentucky, and Mitch McConnell has been that's been his campaign, one of his campaign promises for years.
Hmm.
And now he's like, and finally I can go to the people. It's the bridge that connect Kentucky and Ohio. It's the
It
somebody
was an
Brett.
infrastructure. Okay, let me see. PBS says the it was eager. Let's see. Eager to showcase his bipartisan bona fides as a
Mm-hmm.
2024 decision looms, President Biden appeared Wednesday alongside Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a longtime adversary and sometimes friend. Joe Biden, President of the United States, I'm especially happy to be here, and my friend and colleague of many
Mm-hmm.
years, I
Mm-hmm.
might add, longest serving leader. Okay, yeah, that he was politicking. He said,
Of course.
I'm gonna scroll up and see what it was. So, okay, here it is. There is a bright spot across the country. The Brent Spence Bridge is one of them. A bridge
Mm-hmm.
that continues to and connects different centuries, different states, different political parties. Investments made possible by the 1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law that the White House spent months negotiating with a handful of Senate Republicans. It passed in 2021 after receiving a key blessing from McConnell. Kamala Harris, Vice President, the yays are 69, the nays are 30. So, yeah, that was it. That Brent Spitz Bridge.
Mm-hmm. So, um, personal opinion. How much did you say it was? $1 trillion?
1 trillion. Yep.
Okay, because I couldn't remember. I'm old.
Yeah, I said I put it's a no, 1 billion.
That's what I
Wait,
thought. I
let me
thought it
see.
was. I
Standing
didn't.
near the crumbling Brent Spence Bridge that connects Kentucky and Ohio, the duo announced more than 1 billion in federal funds to
Mm-hmm.
repair it and help build a new Ohio River bridge. 1 billion?
So that's what I thought it was. So let's talk about that for just a second. $1 billion. Okay. Now, the people in the great state of Mississippi, and let's narrow it down to Jackson, Mississippi. Our babies, I don't know if they're going back to school or not, but they went to school, and the water situation was no different. So they sent them back home uh, because of the water problem.
Hmm.
You can give. He is an adversary. He is not a friend. He's not an ally. He is an adversary, and you are declaring that this is bipartisan showmanship. It is not bipartisan showmanship. Look at what has happened since that day. Kevin McCarthy is wreaking havoc on everybody. And as such, the havoc he wreaks on everybody is decimating this country. And you'll see just how bad it will be by the end of the 2-year term of his being Speaker of the House. And I pray that we are smart enough to get him out of there and send him a message that he is a one-term speaker, and that is one term too many. But the people in Mississippi do not deserve to not to be able to have clean water. And you're giving $1 billion for a bridge. The people in Flint, looks like that problem has not gone away. I saw something about that.
They're
They they
still in dire straits. Yes, I was going to say
they
that.
deserve,
Flint, Michigan.
absolutely, and they deserve to have clean water. It's just that plain and that simple. But we spend $1 billion taxpayer dollars on a bridge
In
that makes,
Kentucky.
and what, not just in Kentucky, but he said, now I can go home to tell my constituents
Hmm.
that I have made good on one of my campaign promises that I have been making time after time after time. But what does that do for Biden? Or let's do this. I have a epiphany. HR 40,
Right. Okay.
the reparations bill, to stand up a commission, not to give people reparations, but to stand up a commission to study the atrocities of the pernicious history of our past for the past 256 years of forced free labor, 100 years of Jane Crow terror. And here we are talking about $1 billion bridge, but we can't get Biden to give us a $20 million, not a 20 billion, not a billion, but a $20 million commission to study these atrocities and the allegations of atrocities and the pernicious history of our past and current day vestiges. But he is willing to give an adversary $1 billion bridge. We have to all be madder than mad. Every one of us, not because I have been a advocate and a lobbyist for passage of HR 40, but because it is a commission. Nobody is getting reparations. It's a commission to make remedy recommendations that will have to go back and be legislated into law, passed and signed into law. So, and this country stands up commissions all the time. Do you think there's yellow dust on the moon? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's stand up a commission and go study it. Do you think that there is that there are really red sails in the sunset? Oh, gee, I don't know. Let's stand up a commission and study it. But you can't stand up a commission for something this important, not just to me as a person of African descent, but these are the things that will reconcile the differences and deal with face to face the polarization of this country. And
Because
he and
until
Biden,
that's addressed, we're not going to heal.
no, there'll be no healing, none at all, none at all. And we have to be at a point where we can say that when we get to healing, actually, before I get to healing, when we get to reconciliation, moving towards healing, we must make sure that we negotiate for a guarantee of non repetition. Because 3 generations, well, I'm old, 4 generations down below me, 5 generations below me, we don't want those generations to have to come face to face with what the generations before me had to come face to face with and have to, confront. So we have to push to get a guarantee of non-repetition.
So,
Can't keep going back to this place again and again.
so those that are listening, I have a banner. If you're listening, you can't see the video. I have the number up here. call the White House, ask them to support the H.R. 40 bill for reparations, 202-456-1111.
It's easy to do. The
Right.
president, if the president does not want to support the bill, he could be really generous and give us an executive order. Tell him to give us an HR 40 executive order.
202-456-1111. That's like our first call to action there. I'm going to play this video because we're going to segue into a little bit of the conversation about what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. So I'm going to play this video. It's just a little clip from the View, and that's going to be close to the end of our program tonight, but we're going to do another podcast where we continue to talk about the HR 40 bill, and the erasure of Black history. What he's essentially trying to do is erase not only our history, but basically erase, which it's not hyperbolic, erase Black existence. And my problem with all that he's doing and getting away with is there are black citizens that live in Florida, and I'm not seeing a ripple of any pushback for what he is doing, and how he's terrorizing the black citizens in Florida. So let's play this video, and then on the other side we're going to discuss a little bit of this.
It's racism. That's right. And I think we have to call it exactly what it is. This is cultural erasure. We've seen it happen before. When Black people were brought from Africa over here, forced to be here, they erased our culture from us. They took our religion away. They took our names away. They took our heritage, everything that related us to Africa. They took it away and replaced it with Western culture. That's what you're doing right now in education. When you look at the AP classes that are taught right now in the state of Florida, you have Chinese language and culture, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Latin, and Spanish. But you can't have African American studies. I have a huge problem with this. And this is a course that was created and cultivated with certain expertise and experience. Henry Louis Gates Jr. was a part of this. This isn't just some thing that they threw together at the last minute. It is put together to teach you about us and who we are through arts and literature, as you were saying, science, civil rights, political science, geography. There's so much more to it. And if every other culture can be taught except for Black culture, that's racist.
That's right. Yeah,
And your thoughts, Miss Kenniss, on that?
I think the sister summed it up. So, as far as Florida is concerned, well, let me back up. In the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, there are 100 members, 2 from each state. There are no Black females in the Senate. There are 2 Black males. One of the 2 Black males does not support reparations and has never been a co-sponsor of the reparations bill on the Senate side. So he professes to be race neutral, which means the legislation he supports has to be all-encompassing, all-inclusive. We know in this country, given the egregious atrocities against people of color, and right now I'm talking people of African descent, that race neutral legislation cannot work every time. In November, a Black female ran for Senate in the great state of Florida. And the state of Florida could not pull together enough votes to get her into the Senate. So if the state of Florida cannot muster up enough votes to get one Black female into the Senate, then um, I'm not surprised at anything else that comes out of the state of Florida. Now, understand that there are some other ethnic groups in Florida who are very, very, very strong and very, very powerful.
Mhm. The
Um,
Cubans.
uh, and given their tenacity and their strength, and their power, then maybe we're not going to get um, a Val Demings in the Senate. Maybe we're just not going to get that. But as the young lady said in the clip, there's every kind of AP class in the world. And I think that's great because it has a, cultural selection there. You can choose Japanese, Chinese. It's
Mhm.
your preference.
Right, and it's elective.
And there
Those
are
are
electives.
elective classes.
Um, my understanding is that the basis for not allowing this class to move forward, just my understanding, not saying it's true, my understanding is that there is a concern that teaching the true history of the heinous behavior of the colonizers and the oppressors of this country would be too much for little little oppressors and little colonizers to have to deal with in a classroom.
Mhm.
But we've been dealing with it since for day one, and nobody felt that it was too much for us to deal with. It is just yet another smokescreen. And just for a minute, I'm gonna take I'll put a pin here and go somewhere else just for a minute.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of am one of those people. I like to go on history treks
Mhm.
and just go and explore the scenes and the sites of history. So a couple of years ago, I was in South Carolina, and I had hopped on a couple of those tour buses to go check out the plantations. Well, the first thing I discovered is it is not palatable to the oppressor's ears and to the colonizer's ears to hear the word plantation. So they've been upgraded to estates,
Mm.
which is more offensive than plantations because
Right.
an estate implies that there's all this money behind it and on and on and on. There just seems to be a different connotation when you say estate, but they've been upgraded, so now they're estates. Well, the next thing I learned was that these plantations, now turned into estates, get all kinds of grant money because they become 501c3s.
Mm.
But as a 501c3 recipient, in the work I do with reparations, the grantors, the very first thing they say is none of my grant funding can be used to advocate for legislative interests, i.e., reparations, because that's what I'm working on. But you can get all this 501c3 money, all this grant money to run a plantation. It is plantation. I don't care what you want to say it
Right.
is. It's not an estate, it's a plantation. So how is it that there's so much money and some of these places are gorgeous. They have these beautiful rose gardens and the old fashioned columns and the wraparound porches, and you go inside and the winding staircase that comes down and around, and they rent them out to little to the daughters of the oppressors because they dreamed of having their wedding there
Mhm.
and being able to just walk around the grounds in the whole 9 yards. So when we talk about what is offensive, you can't say the word plantation. And what I learned was that there are people who are very offended by it and who say, "I did not pay my money to come here to hear the word plantation, and it is offensive, and you need to just do away with it." But also on some of those plantations, they've done away with the slave quarters, or the slave quarters that are still there are the ones where if you had brick masons on the plantation and bricks that weren't perfect were put to the side, and the brick mason who was an enslaved person, once he collected enough of them, he could build himself a little brick shanty, you know. Um, so those often are still standing, but the wooden shacks, they're gone. They're gone.
Like
So
like I said, they're trying to erase us in our history.
everything. And
They're
sadly,
yeah.
go ahead. No,
No,
go.
no, no, you finish.
And sadly, because we don't know the beauty of our history, uh, and every generation loses more of that historical knowledge, so that now when you talk about what our history is, not just that we were somehow or another in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on some transatlantic horror cargo frigate
Right, and
coming
that's
in this
like I was
direction.
gonna mention them trying to change the word plantation. Well, that's no more offensive than being involuntarily relocated. Like,
Oh yes. Involuntarily relocated.
we were
I love that
kidnapped.
phrase.
Yeah.
I love that phrase.
But yeah,
You know,
they're trying to change it to involuntarily relocated. Like
or
that's
or
still
or
kidnapping.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Or you weren't really slaves. You were involuntary workers.
Right,
Well,
right,
if you're an involuntary worker and you're being forced to work against your will and you did not get paid 256 years of forced free labor, what are you if you're not enslaved?
right.
So we have to, first of all, know more about our history. That is all of our history, not just about Rosa Parks. And I take nothing from
Right, right.
Ms. Parks, or the only thing most of us know about Dr. Martin Luther King is he had that speech. What speech?
I
Well,
have a dream. The I have
mhm,
a dream speech that they
mhm,
always misquote out of
mhm.
context.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. So once you get past Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, it's really really hard for
Mhm.
that for a lot of us to come up with others who have made phenomenal contributions to the country, to our people, to the movement, and just in general, until we know who all those people are, and until we are able to just stand and recite their contributions without even thinking about it,
Mhm.
they stand a real good chance of wiping us off the map, wiping our history off the map, rewriting the history books. Because again, who amongst us owns what's the name of the publishing company? Macmillan Publishing Company.
Right, right. And it's another one, the besides the Daughters of the Confederacy, because I actually remember I was born in '68, but I'm only 54, and I remember in the front of my books like the Daughters of the Confederacy was like cursive written like in real fancy in the books, but I didn't understand what it meant. But this I'm going to play this quick video here of this lady. She's an educator and she's a teacher, and she's trying to put out a warning, just like what we to keep talking about this because they're trying to wipe us out, our history and our existence out, even though we're stuck here. But let's listen to what she has to say. And this is a crisis. They're working on it. Hold on, I've gotta mute this.
Types of violent, dehumanizing images to be in our textbooks about white people.
So teachers in Florida are now reporting that they're having to remove from schools based on DeSantis's new anti-woke laws, which allow conservative parents to complain about teacher materials and could potentially lead to felony charges against them. Right now, mid-year, basically teachers won't have books to teach, and that's going to have impacts on student learning, guaranteed. Not to mention the fact that it's going to push a lot of Florida teachers to just quit the profession during a historic teacher shortage nationwide. What's really disgusting about this is when Black and Native American students in San Francisco complained about having to go to a school where they had to see demeaning images of Black people and unalived images of Native American people, they were basically mocked and derided by people like Harmeet Dillon, who's running for RNC chair. Make it make sense.
Never allow these types of
Kanye West and Candace Owens are truly the internalized racism gifts that keeps on giving. And I'm going to go deep into this one because there's a lot of races and ethnicities that have the same problem going on across the globe, not only in the United States. There's always going to be situations in Stockholm Syndrome where the abductee or the abuse is always going to identify with the master. A lot of you will remember Donald Trump and the infamous situation where he chucked paper towels to the people of Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria. It was fucking humiliating. And when you look at the picture, I mean, it tells so much. And a lot of people will never forget that situation as one of the most humiliating moments in the history of Puerto Rico and their relationship to the United States. But you will be amazed and surprised how many people supported that. They even blame it on the Puerto Ricans. They were like, well, we allowed it. It was a photo op. We prepped it. Right now, as this video is running, you will see Puerto Ricans coming in the comments supporting Trump. There's always going to be slaves that take care of their masters to the point where they'll cause their own demise. And that's why Puerto Ricans Trump supporters exist, and Trump supporters in Mexico, and Black Trump supporters. It's cult mentality, but it's also the house Negro wanting to aspire to be like his white master. And the field Negro can do anything else but look from afar and feel bad about it. Malcolm X said it, and it's a perfect example on this. They are soundboards to white supremacy. And members of this racial movement used them to prove their point on how they can humiliate these people into submission. And to make matters worse, they make them think that we are the problems, the one that are fighting against them. As long as you're the obedient, quiet Negro, you're good. But when you run your mouth, you become a problem. It's fucking embarrassing. That is why I don't feel bad when I roast them and I give them shit. They need to be humiliated out of existence, in all honesty. Because they don't understand the damage that they're doing to our children and the people that are coming into the next generation that are going to vote. Hopefully one day they'll wake up, because this is just fucking senseless. And these people that they're kissing their asses, they're not serving them well. They are just keeping them there, lingering. Fed, quiet, and happy enough so that they won't think there's any problem. It's what I said in my last podcast. People of color that are Republicans and that voted for Trump and that still support these ways are like that rabbit in the magic trick. They're just fucking sitting there in that hat, right? Not moving, not doing shit. Just there, waiting for the magic trick to end so they can get moved on to another hat and then do the same shit. They're not doing anything for them. And they think that because they make a little bit of money or they have a business, they're going to aspire to be white. You will never be them. You will never be part of that little club. Que tengan buen día.
Your thoughts, Miss Kenniss?
Again, may the day come when we all recognize that we're all being treated the same way. And when that day comes, that's when we will begin to be able to declare solidarity across all racial lines. And I heard him about how humiliating it was that Donald Trump was tossing out paper towels. And as he was saying it, I thought about, if you're talking about humiliation, okay, Donald Trump throwing out paper towel, rolls of paper towels, and people were catching them. That is humiliation. But what about Donald Trump talking about all the people from those sugar honey iced tea countries? That's even more humiliating to me, just to me.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to start a race war here or
Right, right.
anything. I'm simply saying that the paper towel situation was humiliating to the Puerto Rican community. And the
I think
the
he was
sugar honey,
basically just using that as an example, but he's basically saying what you're saying. We're all in the same boat.
we're all in the same boat.
Mhm.
We none of us are going to jump out, because if one of us jumps out of that boat, the boat's going to topple over. The weight has been calculated in order to keep that boat upright. So
Mhm.
until we just look up one day and say, wait a minute, we are all in the same boat. And we need to, we need to just send a message to this country. We're not playing with you all any longer. We're not. We, if the stats are right, there are 62 million people of Latinx, Hispanic descent in this country.
Mhm.
They say there are 20 million in the shadows. Well, if that's the case, that's 82 million. That's twice our size almost. There are 46 million of us. That's almost twice the number of us that there are. And then you throw in the other racial groups. We should be able to say we are not tolerating this not one more minute. But we
Mhm.
should also be able to look around and say, there are no black women in the Senate. We need to put a black woman in the Senate. There are 4 Hispanics in the Senate, 2 black men, and no black women. And
Wow.
whose backs was this country built on? This country was built upon the blacks of people of African descent. And we cannot get one black woman in the Senate? That's the
And
problem.
I honestly, I didn't
We
know that until you said something. I didn't know there was not one. I didn't know that.
There's not one, not one. So when we talk about, erasing us from the history books, erasing our contributions, that's on us, because I'm going to put it out there, and I know people are going to say I can't give up my Saturday mornings, but it's on us because,
Mhm.
okay, you don't want to teach African history in the public school systems, fine, don't teach it. Why can't we have
Well, if
Saturday
that's the case, don't teach
Academy?
any history. If they don't
Well,
teach any history.
okay, then don't teach any, but I don't care about other people and their histories right now. I
Mhm.
care that we need to know our history. And in order for us to know our history, if they're not going to teach it to us, if they're going to tell us a bunch of lies, for example, I remember this as clear as if it happened yesterday. 3rd grade, Virginia history. We had this history book, and in that history book, I wish I could find a copy of that history book. It said that on the plantation, the little white children and the little slave children were best of friends. They played together all the time. They just loved up on each other. Oh, I wish I could find that history book. Gosh, I wish I could find it. What a
And that was
lie.
that was
What
your
a
school
big
book?
fat old.
That
That
was
was
your
my
school
my
book?
my my third, yes, my 3rd grade history book. Virginia history. Mhm.
Mm.
Sure did. Had pictures, drew little pictures of little slave kids and little white kids playing in the yard. They're just best friends. So if we don't know better, and if we don't push back and fight for there to be retractions of those kind of statements and total rewriting of of those history books, uh, then we are never, never, never going to be able to make sure that we also can sing that song never again. And in saying never again, we say we will never forget. And those are the things that we have to work on. I mean, okay, Ron DeSantis, you don't want to teach Black history, African American history, fine, don't teach it. But we're gonna get together and we're gonna have parents over here and parents over there and parents over there, and we're gonna stand up some Saturday academies, and we're gonna find some people to roll up in there and teach our children what they need to know in order to be able to compete in the real world.
Hmm. Yeah, because they're not going to be able to go to any other colleges because they did not learn the curriculum. Those colleges are not going to accept them. They're going to be like,
Nope.
where did this alien child come from? Like, you have, you know what I mean? And even if they want to go out of state, then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out of the country, because the
Mm-hmm.
other countries are teaching their schools all of, everybody's, plus their own
Mm-hmm.
history. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
cannot you cannot be what's the word I'm looking for? You cannot be competitive if you don't know your any history. You can't
That's
be
absolutely
competitive.
correct. And it makes us look like buffoons.
Mhm.
Oh, did you see did you see them blacks? They don't know nothing about their history. I asked a question. It's when my daughter was in third grade, fifth grade. When my daughter was in fifth grade, we wanted to send her to the university's Saturday Academy, but she had to be like in sixth or seventh grade to go.
Mhm.
And we fought back and said, okay, test our children. And if they fail, fine. If they pass, then we want them to go to Saturday Academy. They took those tests and blew through them with flying colors. So, and it was mixed ages, and it wasn't like they put all of the fifth graders over here because it wasn't any fifth graders, but our children. It wasn't like
Right.
they said, okay, seventh graders over here, ninth graders over there. You all sat in the room together. If they taught you how to build a radio, they taught everybody how to build that
Mhm.
radio. If they taught you math, everybody learned math. And my daughter and her classmates had the greatest amount of fun. They would pick out ninth graders and they would say, "Excuse me, can you help me? I have a homework assignment, and I don't know how to find the information." And they would ask these kids who were in ninth grade the question I remember most: "What is the capital of Africa?"
Mm.
And these ninth graders would give them these answers, and they would just bust out, and I know that's not a good word. They would just bust out and laugh. And they would say, "See that boy right there? He don't know. Africa got 54 countries." And when we asked him what was the capital of Africa, he said Kenya, or he said South Africa. So my point is that we have to push to get inclusion in AP classes in Florida, but we
Mhm.
also can't stop there. We have to go beyond whatever is being taught in those AP classes and make sure that our children are well prepared to be able to go out and stand against anybody's child.
Mhm. Because yeah, like you said, the when it comes to Martin Luther King, which by the way, he's also trying to wipe out that history, what little bit of black history that's taught. But with like I'm using Martin Luther King as an example. What little bit of that Martin
Mhm.
Luther King that they learn is all out of context. It's like they cherry pick.
Mhm. Mhm.
They cherry pick it. It's all out of context because they only play that one part of the "My I Have a Dream" speech. But when he gets after that part, he's talking about. I think it's in this speech where he feels guilty about, or maybe it was an interview where he feels like he did the wrong thing about. He feels like he led his people into a burning fire or something like that. So it got
Mhm.
more militant as the speech went along, but they only stop it at that point.
And Japan is one of the few countries that celebrates Dr. Martin Luther King
Mhm.
Day.
Yep. And they
So, what
respectfully
if
celebrate Martin Luther King.
exactly? So, what if your child or your children had opportunity uh, a year in Japan in some sort of a cultural exchange program?
Mhm.
And all you know about Dr. Martin Luther King is what they taught you in some school system in Florida.
They'd be
But
laughed
then
out
you
of the
go to
country.
Japan. Thank you.
They
Done
would be
deal.
laughed out of the country. Because I've
Thank
seen
you. Done
how they
deal.
celebrate Martin Luther King. I've seen part of my study of my research of Japan. Like I'm researching their culture and everything like that because I wanted to move there. They would laugh them out of the school. I mean, out of the country completely. It'd be like, "Mom and Dad,
Hmm.
do I have a round trip ticket?" Because yeah,
They're
they would
picking
laugh
on
them
me. I want to
completely out
come
of the
home.
country. Yeah,
They're
and they
picking
wouldn't.
on me.
They would. I mean, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I couldn't imagine, but I do know they would be laughed out of the country.
Yep. Yep. Easily so. Easily so. So we cannot get everything we need from the public school system, and therefore we have to step up to the plate and be better prepared so that we guarantee that our children can stand beside anybody's children and show
To
where
be
they
just as
came from and
competitive.
who,
Yep.
and just as competitive.
So on that note, we're going to close out, but I'm going to play this last video of this young man. So I kind of have a little bit of hope because I'm watching the youth and I'm listening to the youth in this country, and they are there's a swell of organization. I can sense a swell of organization from the younger people. So this young man kind of gives me hope. So I'm going to play his video here. Hold on a second.
Outside of our lives, what exactly do we have to lose from making bold attempts to change this world as we know it? I ask that question now because I mean, just think about it. We talk about people being stripped from access to resources, especially regarding their basic needs like food, water, a roof over their head, heat, electricity, internet. Meanwhile, right now, we're losing all of that. Right now, with everything being as expensive as it is, we're losing that all right now. And we're just taking it. We're just taking it. We're not really, collectively, I guess, en masse, we're not doing anything. It's already happening. I think about the 100,000 people laid off in the tech industry. You know, they have nothing to lose now. They have nothing to lose. And so they could theoretically they have the ability, though it is painful at the moment, they have the ability to really exercise their fate in a sense. Of course, in a perfect world, They'll have access to resources. Because again, now think about it. We're living now paycheck to paycheck. And any interruption in there, we're already screwed. We're homeless. We're behind on some bills. We're losing cars. That's 60% of America right now. Again, what do we all collectively have to lose but our lives if we want to see something better? And it doesn't have to be violent either. It can be, well, there will be elements to it where the masses, it will be peaceful. I'm sorry, I just can't shake the feeling that there'd be some violence, but not all of it is violence. Not all of it will result in our own demise. And I think that's what people are worried about. There'll be a change, there may be a change of lifestyle, but we're already dealing with that right now. And we're just taking it. Again, we're just taking it right now. We can fight. As long as we have breath in our body, we can still fight. I think about the protesters in Memphis. I think about the protesters in Atlanta. And I think about the protesters we've seen all over the world. As long as there's breath in our bodies, we can still fight. We can strive for a better world than as we see it now. All we got to do is keep the faith and do the damn.
That young man gives me hope because they're paying attention, and there's more of the youth that are saying pretty much the same thing he's saying. So
That's
we're going
good
to
to hear.
keep up our fight. We're going to keep talking about this as well. We're going to keep it up on this platform. So to our listeners tonight, if you like what you hear, consider like a donation to help us with our programming. We're peer supported. Follow me on my socials. I will have them all in descriptions in the description box, and the link to the article that I read earlier from PBS. I'll also have the link to that. And to Miss Kenniss, thank you so much, Miss Kenniss. And we're going to do this again next week.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
City Scene Productions / Media Company and Seen and Heard podcast are peer supported. All support is greatly appreciated, whether it is equipment or financial. Every little bit helps. Every contribution, however big or small, powers our programming, staff and creators, and sustains our future. Any amount you are able to give to help support our journey and progress will be greatly appreciated. If you would like more info, please go to our contact page to leave a message, and one of the members of our team will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. We'd like to hear from you. If you'd like to leave feedback, a comment, or ask a question, leave us a voicemail at 615-447-8290. Thank you.